Do Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani have the MVP awards locked up, or can Bobby Witt Jr. and Marcell Ozuna make a push? This is a special happy hour edition of First Pitch. Yes, welcome on into a special happy hour edition of First Pitch. I'm Lindsay Crosby with Athlon Sports. He's Christian Rauh, managing editor of InsideTheCardinals.com. And I want to talk about the MVP races because we're at the point now where a lot of players have kind of fallen off the board. There's not odds out there for more than about 6 guys per league, but it's really kind of come down to a 2-person race in both leagues. In the American League, Aaron Judge is the favorite. A lot of the sports books have him around 1450 or so. If you want us to say the name of your sports book when we're doing this, by the way, reach out. We'd love to have you join the show as a sponsor. With Bobby Witt Jr., the Kansas City Royals at plus 600. So, all right, first, let's talk about Aaron Judge. Batting .331, which is not the best in baseball, but is close. .463 on base, leads baseball. .703 slugging, leads baseball, which means his 1.166 OPS obviously leads baseball. 44 homers, 111 RBI. Both of those lead the entire game. 221 for his OPS plus, 308 total bases, 14 intentional walks. All of these things lead baseball. If Aaron Judge were to stop right here, if he for some reason did not play the final month of the season, is he still the MVP? Has he done enough already to lock it up? Or do we need him to do more because we've seen him have years where he's hit 60 plus home runs before?
Yeah, it makes you wonder if they're going to hold past performances against him, which is kind of weird to say, but I wonder if they're actually going to do that.
I don't think is the standard higher for Aaron Judge than other players.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if you could say if he stopped today, would he be able to hold off Bobby Witt Jr.? But I think that if he just continues to play baseball and just to have, even if his pace slows down a little bit, I think he's going to be the front runner and be the favorite to win it. It's not like he's slowing down anyway at all, Lindsay. You mentioned how great his slugging and OPS has been on the season. In the month of August, he has an 842 slug. So, I mean, he's not slowing down whatsoever. He's already hit 6 home runs this season or this month, 15 RBIs. He's walked more than he struck out this month. There's a lot of good things that he's doing in baseball. And even though the Yankees haven't had the best month, they're still finding ways to win, mostly because of Aaron Judge doing what he does. And if it's not home runs, he's doing some great extra base hits. He's already got 5 doubles on the month. Most of those doubles I've seen in August have come in pretty high clutch situations too. I've seen him do it in the bottom of the 9th a couple times. He's done it in extra innings. So I don't think he's slowing down anytime soon. Hopefully, he stays good and he stays healthy so we can see him for the sake of baseball. But an 842 slug in August, man, I mean, the stats are going to get even better if he keeps this up.
Yeah, looking at some of the comparisons to this versus 2022 when he won the MVP with that 62 homer season is really interesting. Like, stolen bases are down. He stole 16 bases that year. He's at 6 right now. But, his home run rate, almost a full percent down, 8.9% to 8%. But his strikeout rate is also down. His walk rate is up. He didn't change any of his hard hit percentages. He's still crushing the ball, right? Over 60% of his batted balls are hard hit balls, which is nuts. But he upped his line drive rate. He lowered his ground ball rate. Like, everything, it feels like, has gotten better. And it almost kind of feels like, to your point, he's not really selling out for homers. He's just more of a complete hitter. His batting average is up 20 points from that MVP season, 311 to 331. His on-base percentage, and granted, having Juan Soto there with you affects this a bit, but his on-base percentage is up almost 40 points from when he won MVP, and he actually has a higher slugging than when he won the MVP. So, and this is all coming while Aaron Judge also bucking the conventional WHIP trends. At age 32, moved to a more demanding defensive position by taking center field versus staying in right. So they had a place to put Juan Soto. So it feels like this is his award to lose. I struggle to think about what he would have to do for the rest of the season to not win it. I do think he would have to, in essence, miss a month. Like he would have to just not play for a month and end his season with 123 games. But then also that kind of segues us into Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt is, I mentioned that Aaron Judge was not leading baseball in batting average. Bobby Witt is 349 batting average, 399 on base, 614 slug. So his OPS 1.14. He leads baseball in runs with 108. He leads baseball in hits with 174. He's tied for the league lead in games played with 125. I do not believe Bobby Witt has had a game off all year. Because that is the same number, I believe, as Marcell Ozuna, who's also been in every single game this year, confirming that. Ozuna's at 124 because the Braves have one less game. So yeah, he's played in every single game this year for Kansas City. And his defense has been very, very good. He struggled his rookie year defensively as he adjusted to the majors. He was good last year. He's better this year, I think. 25 homers, 25 stolen bases. 2 questions for Bobby Witt Jr. One, what does he have to do to take MVP from Aaron Judge at this point? And 2, do we think he could get to a 40-40 season, or is it too late to get that many home runs?
Yeah, I think that's a stretch because where you're sitting right now, he's sitting at 25-25, right? Is that what you said?
So 30-30 feels reasonable. I mean,
yeah, I mean, and even 35-35 might do it, but I don't think you're going to be able to get to 40-40. The thing about Bobby Witt is that it's hard to compare both these two together. Aaron Judge is just a completely different player as Bobby Witt Jr. Judge goes more for power, although we've mentioned that he is working on becoming a better hitter this year. And Witt, although he still has 25 home runs, he's more of the guy that you got to focus on getting on base. He doesn't have the support around him as much as Aaron Judge does have on the Yankees as well. So it's hard. You don't want to look at his RBIs. RBIs should not be a stat to be in
do
the
not
MVP
disrespect my man, Vinny Pasquantino.
Why would I ever? Come on now. I would never do that to the Italian scallion.
We love Vinny P.
But let's be fair. The Royals, the way that the Royals are built, the way that the Yankees are built, at least around Aaron Judge and around Bobby Witt, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Bobby Witt's came up and has done a lot of these great things late in his season as well. He didn't start off as hot as you would expect. And when you look at, if you try to compare it between Judge and Witt and you try to make some comparisons, first thing that I would look at is slugging. Because when I think of Aaron Judge, I think of slugging. Well, with Bobby Witt Jr., his slugging did not increase to over 500 on a month until July. He had a 757 in August, and then he had it over an 833 in July. So before that, they were 500 or below. You didn't see that from Aaron Judge. So him getting the kind of improvements late in the season, I think that's great moving forward. And if you're a Kansas City Royals fan, you're ecstatic that you know that you have him locked up until he becomes eligible to be an AARP member. But I don't think it's going to be enough for the MVP race.
Yeah. Kind of agree with you there. Interesting trends in the career of Bobby Witt Jr. is he's dropped his strikeout rate every single season, 21.4% his rookie year, 17.4 last year, 15.1% this year. His walk rate, 4.8 his rookie year, all the way to 7.3 now. He's hitting the ball harder. It's like 3 mile an hour harder than he was hitting in his rookie year. His line drive rate is up. His ground ball rate is down. His fly ball rate, he's getting better at all of these different aspects. The biggest thing to me that kind of shows how much of a complete hitter he's become, though, is not just he's leading the league in batting average, right? But last year, he hits 30 home runs. He has 30 home runs and 49 stolen bases. 30 home runs with a 495 slugging. This year, he's already at 25 home runs with another almost 40 games to go. But his slugging is 614, right? He's already tied last year's 11 triples, which led baseball last year. He's already tied last year's 11 triples. He's already exceeded last year's doubles count, 28-35. Like, he's becoming legitimately one of the best players in all of baseball. Like you said, I'm glad they have him locked up. And I typically don't like all the weird things in contracts, but on the Bobby Witt note, I love that he has the ability at a certain point when he gets towards the age of 30, he's only 24 now, where he can opt out. If Kansas City does not spend money and devote to putting a winner around him, he can put pressure on the organization that he could leave and or free agency. And I think you saw this offseason with the draft lottery and how it changes some things. They decided we're going to go for it, right? We're going to invest. We're going to go out and be active in free agency. I feel like not from a sheer dollars, but a number of players, they were one of the more active teams in free agency. And they're being rewarded with a team that is a playoff contender, has an MVP candidate on it. And like they did what you want teams to do. As a fan, this is what you want teams to do. You want them to be active in free agency, active on the trade market, to improve their team, to make a playoff push. And I think the Royals have handled this correctly. And I'm thrilled that Bobby Witt, he's going to win one. I think in the next 3 years, Bobby Witt is going to win an MVP, but it's going to be really hard to do it this year with what Aaron Judge has done.
I know that there are stats out there that discuss adjusted park stats, but just looking at the numbers and what we've discussed so far, do you think that there is a big reason why Judge is leading or always been a leader because of he plays half his games at Yankee Stadium and because Bobby Witt plays half his games at Kauffman Stadium? Do you think there's a room to have that conversation? Does it deserve to even be in the conversation talking about park factor?
I mean, you do have that short porch out there for Judge, and I do think that's part of it. Like if you and I'm pulling this up on Statcast real quick. If you look at Bobby Witt Jr., he's got 21 home runs this year if he plays every game in Kauffman, right? You know, I mean, obviously he has 25 right now, but it goes down because of his ballpark. That is, I believe, actually the lowest home run total he would have of any ballpark. It's just not suited for his game. Whereas if he played in New York with that short porch, he'd have 31 homers. If he played in Chicago with the White Sox or LA, he'd have 33. If he played in Cincinnati, he'd have 39 homers. Bobby Witt would be on the verge of a 40-40 season if he played in Cincinnati and in Great American Small Park. So it kind of shows you the dimensions of Kauffman. It's literally the lowest home run total if he played all of his games there, every single one of his games there. So I do think that you can kind of give a little bit of a nod and say, well, Judge gets a little bit of help from his ballpark. Witt's not in the ideal ballpark for his game, but also there's a ton of red on that Statcast. Almost the entire thing is red except for Bobby Witt's chase and his walk. Those are the only things that are below average. Everything else is above average. And I think he'd be an MVP candidate almost anywhere he played.
Good point.
All right. Going from a guy who has been an MVP candidate everywhere he's played, looking to the National League, the favorite is Shohei Ohtani, the Los Angeles Dodgers. He is by far the favorite. We have him looking at this not to be named sports book, minus 6,000. Marcell Ozuna of the Braves, plus 1,500 as the second place. Nobody else is within plus 5,000 of this race. It's a two-man race. We'll talk about that in a second, too. Shohei Ohtani, is this inevitable that he wins the National League MVP? And is it weird that our top two favorites for it in the National League are both DHs?
Weird, yes, because we've never seen it before. But when you look at how everybody's performing and how both of them are performing in comparison, it's no surprise because they both deserve to be 1-2 right now.
Yeah.
We will have a DH as a National League MVP this year, and it will most likely be Shohei Ohtani, which is crazy because for the first year, he's not pitching, and his WAR is right next to the years past, Lindsay. I think that he's right on par with his WAR compared to what he did last year when he pitched and he DH'd. So the season he's having with the bat alone is impressive. I know we talked about it in an episode a few weeks back of maybe you shouldn't have him pitch anymore, or at least come out of the bullpen because of how much he's focused at the plate and how much more production you're getting out of Shohei Ohtani. I'm still going to stand behind that. I think maybe you do think about putting him in the bullpen because what he's doing at the plate has been really impressive, and it's inevitable. He's going to have a 40-40 season,
which is just wild to me. He finished last year 44 homers, 20 stolen bases. He's got 39 homers, which leads the National League, and 37 stolen bases right now. He also leads the NL in runs with 94 and was slugging at a 611 and OPS at a 999. I thought more about our discussion about should he no longer pitch. And one, I think we need to acknowledge if he didn't pitch, he wouldn't be a DH, right? He'd be in the outfield. He'd be playing right or something like that. He played that some in high school. They used him a little bit in LA before the league changed the rules on how the DH worked so that he could stick in and stay as DH when he left the game after a start. But looking at this, he's actually underperforming what he did last season. Like last year when he won AL MVP for the second time as a pitcher and a hitter, his offensive stats, he batted 304 with a 412 on base, which led the AL, and a 654 slugging, which led all of baseball. All three of those stats are down this year from where they were last year. Now, he might pass the home run total. He had 44 last year. He has 39 now, and he has plenty of time to do that. He's obviously exceeded stolen bases, 37-20. I don't know if that is the new team telling him to run more, if that is because he's not having to pitch as much, his legs feel fresher and he can. I don't quite know exactly why that is. StatCast may tell us something about his sprint speed or whatever. I haven't quite looked at that yet. But it kind of feels like maybe just being a DH only hasn't really goosed his numbers as much as we thought it was. Simply, some of that may have just been recovering from the injury, right? He may have been struggling early in the year. But when you look at this, I'm realizing now when I look at them side by side, he's not actually dramatically outperforming what he did last year in any respect except really stolen bases. Everything else is right in line with what he did last year. He's got less triples, but more doubles this year. His RBI count's lower. His walk rate is way lower than last year, although I think that's something where he probably got intentionally walked 21 times as an Angel and only 8 times as a Dodger so far. So that may be it. But I don't think it's as cut and dry as we thought it was that you should just play him in the field and not have him pitch anymore.
Okay, fair enough. No, I think that's a good point. I mean, you look at his slash from last year compared to this year, that definitely does give a solid argument. But regardless of how you want to look at it, it's wild that we're talking about a DH, not only, not only being in contention for the MVP, but being in contention to winning it multiple times in different leagues. And now we're seeing 2 DHs doing it right now. So that's really impressive. Marcell Ozuna, I think, is having a great season as well. It's just not as close as Shohei Ohtani's.
Yeah, he leads the National League in batting average at 309. His line is 309, 381, 592. So an OPS just under 1,000. Leads the National League in RBI with 93. Again, 36 home runs. So he's 3 behind Shohei, 2 behind Shohei. No stolen bases, no stolen base attempts. That's not Marcell Ozuna's game. Not only is he not fast, he's slow. His home run trot is the 230th in baseball. We looked that up last night in the Braves Today group chat while we were watching him because he hit the what ended up being the winning run against the Philadelphia Phillies last night. I don't know at this point. I don't think there's anything Marcell Ozuna could do to catch Shohei. I think you'd have to see it. I think it's even more drastic than the AL race. You'd have to see Shohei completely stop, and Ozuna would need to go from 36 home runs. He'd need to get a crazy binge and get close to 50, I think. And even then, it's likely that Shohei would still win even if he just stopped playing now. Last year was something like that. He had that elbow injury, and he just stopped pitching in, I think it was like August. And he still won running away for the MVP. That was different because I think he was still hitting some. But similar situation to that here is I don't think there's anything Ozuna could do to catch him at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think 50 would be the number that you'd have to catch if you're Ozuna to even be in contest. But I will say this, and this isn't usually something that people can put into consideration when thinking MVP, especially now with all the data we have. If you took Shohei Ohtani away from the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2024, and you took Marcell Ozuna away from the Atlanta Braves in 2024, the Atlanta Braves would hurt way more, more. They would be below 500. I'm almost sure of that. So I don't think that'd be the case for Shohei Ohtani on the Dodgers. Not taking anything away from Shohei, but I think when you're talking about most valuable for a team, Ozuna has carried that for the Atlanta Braves this season.
Yeah, going the classic definition of most valuable player versus the award definition of most valuable player, Ozuna is the MVP for the Braves and probably the most valuable player to his team in all of baseball because the Braves have just struggled so much with everything else. So definitely valid there. Question I want to run to you real quick. The number 3 guy in the National League race, tied for 3rd, Francisco Lindor, shortstop for the New York Mets. And I think this is probably worth a conversation about should this be a 3-way race, because he was awful to start the year. First 29 games, he batted 197 with an on base under 300. But since then, he's been very, very good. And I mean, right now, batting 263, then 803 OPS, 24 homers, 25 stolen bases. Does Francisco Lindor deserve to be higher in the race than he currently is? Does it deserve to be a legitimate 3-way race? Because he's batted 282 with an 850 OPS since May 1st.
Yeah, I'd love to say yes in this case. I think he's in a good spot where he's at, being in 3rd place because of how bad the season started for him.
Yeah.
If he started off a lot hotter than he did, then yeah, he deserves to be more in this conversation. But Shohei's done it all year. We've mentioned what Marcel has done for the Braves squad. So I think him being in 3rd place is impressive enough after starting the season really bad. I've looked at the stats. You mentioned how he was batting below 200 for the majority of the beginning of the season. He did not surpass a 200 batting average and stay above 200 for the final time, May 21st. So yeah, basically you're saying that he was a below 200 batter for almost half the season.
Yeah. I think I'm at the point of his highs weren't high enough, right, to get him in there. And like looking at Judge was awful too. The first 31 games, he batted 207. But since then, his lowest batting average has been 318. And he has 2 months, including this one, where he's batting over 400, and another where he's batting over 350. You look at Lindor by chance, and like his average since May 1st is still only 282. And you're in a boat here where he's not really had an incredibly dominant month since then. His best month is the one we're in. He's batting 315. But every other month, 263 in May, 290 in June, 274 in July. Now, yes, he is providing more defensive value than any of these guys outside of Bobby Witt Jr. Like, he is doing that. But I just don't think he's been great enough in any individual month or consistently over the summer to be up in the top 3. I've seen a lot of Mets fans suggest he's being snubbed. I don't quite think he is. This reminds me of the Hall of Fame versus the Hall of Very Good. He's in the Very Good Player award this year, not the Most Valuable Player award this year. So I think he's probably right to be in the top 5, but not anywhere near the top. I think it is definitely a 2-man race. At the end of the day, do we think this is Judge and Ohtani are the 2 winners?
I think so. Yeah, and unless anything changes, injuries or one of those other 2 go on an absolute heater, I think we're going to see Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. So I'm going to even flip it back to you. If we had only one MVP award, if we didn't have them split between leagues, who are you taking between those 2?
Golly. I think it would be Judge, which is wild to think about, but the production, while different, they both lead the league in a bunch of types of production, and Judge is giving you defensive value. I don't think he's an amazing center fielder, but I think he's above average, and he's giving you defensive value where Shohei does not, right? If it came down to it, I do think both from a classical who is the most valuable player to his team perspective and the award MVP perspective, I think it's got to be Aaron Judge.
Yep, I agree with you. I think if we only had one award, I think Aaron Judge would get the nod for me, and then Shohei would be the runner-up. But I think both those two are going to win it for the respective leagues this season. And we're going to have our first DH. I think that's a guarantee. We're going to have our first DH MVP.
Absolutely happens. Like either way, one of those two in the National League does it. This has been a great happy hour edition of First Pitch. If you have ideas for happy hour, you want something you want us to cover, let us know. If you're on YouTube, drop it in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel while you're there. If you're on audio, you can tweet us. I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Christian's on Twitter at Christian S. Rauh, Rauh. So send that over to us. If you're on audio, also leave us a 5-star review. If you want to drop your idea in there, I can virtually guarantee you if it's attached to a 5-star review, we will do it. But until next time, until tomorrow morning, this has been First Pitch.